Scott. Wendell Scott was the first and only African American to compete in NASCAR's Grand National Series. Not the only one to compete, but also the only one who had won. Wendell Scott got his start in racing in the Dixie Racing Circuit, the circuit put together by a New York syndicate, by the National Sports Syndicate in New York. So they raced in New York, DC, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and Florida. The Dixie Racing Circuit races were considered outlaw events because the AAA were not sanctioning these races, and neither was NASCAR. As a black race car driver, you really only had the option to race where you could, when you could. You were not able to obtain a AAA license. You were not able to obtain NASCAR licensing up until Wendell Scott did it. And Wendell Scott's license at first was a little unauthorized. And because the Dixie Circuit wasn't sanctioned by NASCAR or AAA or the USAC, it gave black drivers the opportunity to race wherever they could. Names like Darrell Bubba Wallace may be recognizable, Wendell Scott also recognizable, but what about before him? In the world of motorsports, especially in the United States, we had our pioneers. In the earliest names of motorsport, we have pioneers like Barney Oldfield. If you're black, we have pioneers too. An entire list that maybe you didn't know. A list that expands from coast to coast. In California, we had Ray Joe Jack, whose given name was Dewey Gatson. Mel Layton, Bill Bullitt Scott. In Indiana, we had Red Oliver, who was known as the granddaddy of black drivers. Charlie Wiggins, known as the Negro Speed King. Charlie Dynamite Smith. In Chicago, we had Wild Bill Jeffries. A list of these names wouldn't have been possible without the list of these organizations. In 1924, the Colored Speedway Association was established. The Chicago Speedway Association was also established, and the Negro Stock Car Racing Association was also established. Later on, we had the Black American Racing Association, whose vice president was Wendell Scott. Black history is a part of your history, and it's something that you just don't want to go away because it's just kind of forgotten. I think we'd see a more diverse crowd willingly cheering on motorsports if they had this bit of information. I didn't know that all these people existed. I'm in my 30s. Can you believe it took that long? I'm teaching my uncle who brought me into racing about these people. He's never even heard of them. My parents have never heard of them. This is why this subject is so important.